Hello and welcome to Growing You, Growing Your Business with me, Tony Walker. Now today, look, I'm just going to break straight into it because it just gives me so much great pleasure in working with a bloody good buddy of mine, Nick Stewart. What can I say? Look, Nick, as a fellow broadcaster on Radio Kidnappers, I know you have your own little radio slot here too. I have been doing it for a long time, so I've got a lot to learn from this fella. He's well versed in this sort of stuff, so it's an absolute pleasure just to be in your space once again. We've been working together for a little while now, and it's just, I guess for me, just being in your space, it's always very special for me. I actually learn a great deal from you, just observing you. So, mate, just tell the audience, tell them what makes you tick. What
makes me tick?
Yes.
Well, firstly, I should just say thank you for those kind words.
You're most welcome.
And it's great to be here with you. So, what makes me tick? Well, I like making things work.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I like helping people, and I like to formulate like a strategy and a concept and see it come to fruition and to see it realised. I don't know. I've always been a bit of a tinkerer like that. I like to, and I like to get the last little bit. In other words, it's the kind of a little bit of that kind of perfectionist. I really like to see something done well, and it frustrates me if it's not.
Yeah.
Which just as I am who I am. Yeah.
And again, just watching how you go through that process, and being ex-military myself, you are actually a very, 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 very detailed planner, and that I see that as a huge strength of yours. And this is what we need more in this country, is that ability to lead and to plan and to actually action plans. And sometimes, some people don't quite see the end product as well as the true leaders do. And sometimes our communications has to be a little bit more direct just to get the point across. But when it happens, then, as we say, we can make shit happen.
Yeah.
And that's what
Agreed.
it's about. Yeah. And for me, just seeing that, you going through that process is, again, I think you should have been in the military, my friend.
Being in the military.
But that's by the by. So tell me about the Stewart Group.
Sure.
Yeah. What's the Stewart Group all about, my friend?
So it's a family business that my father set up in January. We will clock over our 35th anniversary. So
Wow.
it's a great milestone. It's built on family values of kinship and stewardship and helping people. We just happen to help people in the area of financial services, which is kind of funny because I often think, our surname Stewart is actually comes from the word steward, because our family were the financial controllers to the Kings of Scotland a long, long time ago, over 1,000 years ago. That's what they did.
Wow.
And so that's where the word steward comes from, as in household steward. And a household steward looked after the finances and the books,
Wow.
made sure that everything balanced and everything was provisioned. And yeah,
Wow.
so I always find that kind of interesting, that this is kind of what my father and I have done. And so I guess you could say kind of runs in our DNA.
It was always meant to be.
Yeah.
So have you then literally fitted into that, what was meant to be, quite naturally for you?
Very, very. I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be in financial services, that I specifically wanted to, at some stage, come into the family business and ultimately, be a driver and have influence in that business.
Yeah.
And Dad and I were able to make that happen, which was absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
But I knew with absolute clarity what I wanted to do. When I've told the story before, so please excuse any listener that's heard this before, and maybe they can go away and make a cup of coffee while I cover this. But it was where, as a kid, I would take a 20 cent piece to school, and I would phone my broker to find out about what stocks were transacting that day, and there was always a particular company that I always liked to have shares in, and I'd watch it and how it traded. And it was a company called Donaghy's, and Donaghy's was actually the oldest listed company on the stock exchange until it was taken over by the management team. But it owned ferry down, so you buy a ski jacket or a sleeping bag or a tent. There was Donaghy's rope, so I always made sure that my ski jackets were, when I was younger and I skied a lot, I would have a ferry down ski jacket, I'd have a ferry down sleeping bag, a ferry down tent, because I really wanted to support the company that I had shares in. And then whenever we redid the crayfish pots at the beach every year, I'd always make sure it had to have Donaghy's rope. Because it's just one of those things, if you have shares in the company, at a very young age I worked that out, and so I would take a coin to school, and I just found it stimulating, just stocks and how they transact, and the governance, and like the cash flows, the dividend stream.
Yeah.
Back in the day, there used to be a lot more share splits and consolidations than there are today, but I just loved it. I don't know why. I guess like a finance weirdo nerd type dude, but I just really, really liked the stock market and investing. Yeah.
And interestingly as well, because it is obviously your passion, and so the industry has to be regulated to make sure that it all gets done correctly.
Yeah.
So this regulations that's currently happening now for FAPs and all that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, so that's a financial advice provider license. Yes,
right.
A FAP. Yep.
Yeah. So is that detracting from what you do best, or is it just one of those things? It's a necessary evil that you have to go through.
Oh, mate, look, it's just like it's like going out cycling, and there's just a little bit of a headwind. Hey, if you're used to cycling, then a headwind's no big deal. You just push through it. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like as a kid when I would do a lot of ski racing and a lot of competitions. Some days the track was icy. So be it. Just get on with it.
Yeah.
That's what you were trained for.
Yeah.
So for me, regulation's just part of playing the game. It's a little bit like the rugby union putting out new rules for the players, some new tackling mandate. That's just the rules of the game. Get on with it.
Yeah.
So for us, I like to embrace regulation and change because it's just part of being a good financial advisor and a good steward of people's capital.
Yeah. And it makes sense, of course. You have to have some sort of regulatory authority over the way in which we do our business. And I know that there's perhaps some other industries, not industries, but companies that are perhaps complaining a wee bit, that there's so much in the way of compliance to do. But as you say, this is needs must. It's a short-term thing.
Well, I can understand why some people have concerns about it whereby they don't have economies of scale, because whenever you bring down a regulatory regime onto an industry, the benefits and the costs do not fall evenly. And there's never ever been an industry or one that's been subject to regulation that would say, oh, that was fair. Yeah. They will all say, hey, I paid more than that person, or I got a disproportionate load of burden in terms of admin. That I get, and there are some people where they are a single shingle, they are a single advisor with maybe one support staff member. Well, they now have a huge amount of compliance and admin to do to be an advisor. But that is just the cost of being in business and being in this particular sector.
Yeah.
And it may mean that over the years, in the years ahead, there will be less single shingle advisors. Yeah. And I can remember when I toured the United Kingdom in the early 2000s, and I'd go over and talk to my friends in this particular industry. Because, of course, I'd become friends with a lot of Dad's friends, and then I'd meet new people at conferences and industry think tanks. So I'd have this wide dispersion of ages and businesses that I would be spending time with. Well, in the United Kingdom, prior to their regulation that we're kind of going through, there were 128,000 independent advisors. It was the largest boutique advisory market in the world per head of capita.
Wow.
Well, after regulation, it dropped down to about 16,000. Okay, so look,
wow.
Regulatory, but that was just because a lot of people were slightly older.
Yep.
and decided they didn't want to go through that hurdle of regulatory reform and the requirements and the changes in the profession. And there were others that just said, hey, this is just too hard on my own. So, to be boutique and niche, you needed scale. Now, there aren't that many single shingle practitioners that have the scale to stay on their own. So most form up with another business to form a much more sustainable business that has economies of scale. That's all. Hey, many industries have been through this.
And as you say, it's there for a reason. Just to see that you are doing it as per the rules of the game.
Totally.
So that's what it is.
Yep.
Fantastic. So, but there's an area, I guess, of the Stewart Group that I was pleasantly surprised about, and that's your push for sustainability.
Yeah.
Now, you're an investment company. What on earth has sustainability got to do with investment strategies and stuff like that?
Well, I like to take it almost one step further as well, because there's the way that we deploy capital into the markets, and that we can do that in a very, very sustainable fashion. So we can engage, let's say hypothetically, $1 million portfolio into the markets where we can reduce the carbon emissions from that portfolio by 80%. So in other words, the types of companies we buy, we will smash down the emissions by 80%. It is absolutely huge. What we can do when we allocate $1 million in a sustainable way will dwarf what you could do with your own hands. You could compost and recycle for your entire lifetime, and you will never get close to what we can do in a single year with your $1 million. I mean, the numbers are phenomenal. In fact, I was listening to a podcast on it the other day, and it was a sustainability guru in the UK, and his wife was chastising him because he didn't do the recycling that day. And he just said, that is so small fry versus what we can do with our capital and our vehicle acquisitions and what we do for global travel. So, but she said, but you should always start with the pennies, and the pennies will look after the dollars. And he was like, yeah, you are right, I do need to recycle. But he was just saying a lot of people are dealing with the small end of town, whereas if they decided to change the way they travelled for their warm winter holiday, that is where there's a big footprint on the environment. So for us as a business, we looked at what we could do with how we deploy capital, because we're really good at deploying capital. It's a scientific, evidence-based approach, very, very rooted in academia on the way that we do it. So it's robust. There's no guesswork. It's a robust, proven, deliverable, and it's measurable. But then you say, well, what do we actually do as a business? Because if I deploy that, it's a little bit like, imagine if I was the ear, nose and throat specialist at the DHB, but I was a chain smoker. So I'm really, really good at helping you out with your conditions, but at the same time, you can smell from, 2 doors away that, I've just been outside and had a cigarette. Well, the fact is that if I'm deploying in our business and our family, if we're deploying capital, then people are going to say to us, well, do you guys actually walk the talk? What do you do? So we wanted to take an approach from a root and stem approach from the ground up. So we looked at our carbon emissions, our water management, our deliverables to the community, what we do as people in terms of our civic values and what outputs that we deliver. And we wanted to build it from the ground up. So we looked at it and said, well, roughly 70% of the emissions that we generate are at work. So when you and I go to the office, our respective offices, most of our carbon footprint is going to be at the office, because we've got printers, computers, air conditioning running, scanners, big servers, you name it. Everything runs at the office. Whereas at home, it's actually quite light. Because, let's say you get up at 6, you're out the door by 7:45, you get back and it's 5:45, and let's say you turn the lights off at 9. Well, you're hardly even there. Most of the time you're asleep. So if you think, then you go, okay, so therefore for our team and our family members that work in the business, that means that most of the footprint that we have on the planet is going to be at work. So therefore, let's work on work. So that's why we sold our internal combustion engines, went to EVs. We reduced our emissions through energy in terms of electricity. We self-generate 70% of our power every day through our solar system that we have.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it's epic the way that it works. And we only charge the EVs, so the German inverters that we have, the computer system that runs it, will only allow us to charge the vehicles on a sunny day. So we never go onto the grid. The cars will not be charged on anything from Huntly. No dirty coal from Huntly. So, in other words, from the grid. So it works. It's just thinking. It's just and you know how I said at the start how I like to make things work. We can kind of see that personal and the mantra that Don and I have about making things work.
Yep.
We've brought that through in terms of our sustainability strategy. We also wanted to actually have. It's like effectively like an initiative or a movement. So we actually trademarked the word "simply sustainable." That actually came through about 10 days ago. So that's trademarked for the use of our group across financial services in New Zealand. So we wanted people to think about it. We're very, very open in sharing with other advisors and other businesses who we utilise to make this happen, how it works, what the outputs look like, what the inputs in terms of the cost. Because people say, hey, what did it cost? And I'll be like, oh, well, the solar system was, like 80 grand and the EV system was like, 18 grand. And this is the payback period. This is the yield. This is what we've got coming up. So, I'm happy to share because I think that if what we're doing that other people can do, it will be massive. I mean, just take it one step back. We got so it took a few months to get the inverters connecting through to the lines company.
Yeah.
But once we did, the bills were coming through, and they were very, very light because, of course, we export a little bit of power and we don't use much of the grid. But over the 3 months, if you exclude the fiscal cost, so in other words, paying the invoice, if we look at the actual units of power, we were a net exporter. So over the period of August, September, October, we had some really sunny months.
Yeah.
I know we had a little bit of rain in mid-September, but aside from that, we were net exporters of units. Now, the only reason why I got a bill was the fact that when we consume off the grid, we're paying about 26 cents. When we export, we get 12. So you can imagine overnight when there's no sun, we're paying away at 26 cents. And then during the day when we're exporting all this power, we're generating 12.
Yeah.
But on an actual unit basis, our footprint is 0. Which is, look, I didn't quite think it was going to be that good. So it's pretty impressive. But at the same time, we've been lowering down our electricity consumption. Because a lot of people, when they put in a solar system, they just go, well, turn the fridge down to -4, have the air conditioning running whenever the sun's up. Whereas we were like, no, we won't do that. We will further optimize what we're doing. So we've pushed further. So we've done things like, we were using about, on a yearly basis, in terms of handtells, 247 kilometres worth of handtells a year. That's just in the toilets and in the kitchens, because we've got 2 kitchens and about 4 toilets. And that was just the amount of handtells we were using. So we said, well, we've got the sun that we're harnessing, beautiful Hawke's Bay sun, converting it into electricity. We're there during the day, so we've put in all these energy efficient and very, very whisper quiet hand dryers. So we believe we can reduce the 247 kilometres down to 30 kilometres of handtells.
Wow.
Just little things, just small incremental steps. And we've got some other initiatives we've got coming up where we're thinking about how we can make things a little bit better and more efficient coming up. So, but we're happy to share with people how we do it and how the EV charging system works.
Yep.
We're shortly about to make that available to the public on the weekends. And then all of the excess revenue that we earn when people put their credit card onto the app to charge, we want to give that away to a local youth-based charity. Because look, we don't need that capital because the project is running itself really well. We just think that extra bit of cream on the cake, let's give that to some local people who do some really cool things and float a whole lot of boats.
Yeah. It's also interesting you were saying that, look, it's just over August and September, which is like the winter months, and you was already generating net. So now we're getting into the proper
Bring it on.
That's going to be super
can't
exciting.
wait.
That's going to be amazing.
It's we've got this really cool little app that we can go onto. We can see live all the time what's going on. You can go back and look at what's happened yesterday, the week prior.
Yeah.
It also covers energy management as well, not just generation. So we can see gross and net, and that's really cool. And see what the cost of the carbon is. It also factors in the EVs as well. Yeah. Around what they're consuming.
Wow.
So pretty cool.
And I guess the bit that really, really excites me and I guess just stamps the Stewart Group's personality on giving back, I guess. As you were saying, that you're quite open and honest to share that information and everything that you've gone through to get this. And I know all the trials that you had to go through initially to get it online, but my goodness me, now you're online. It's such an amazing thing to witness. But for me also, it was amazing just to watch you going through. Nope, we can do this. We can do this. Anything that was sent in just to knock you sideways. Nope, they can do this. And you just stuck to your guns, my friend. And that is just that's the bit that I'm really privileged, I guess, just to see about you. And how you, as you rightly say, you stay focused. You stay focused with a passion. So so when people see Nick on a mission, I can honestly say he's on a mission not just to crush people. He's on a mission to achieve stuff that to the benefit of others. That is the bit that I just really admire about you, my friend.
Thank you. Well, and I think that part of the thing that I'm in my 21st year of doing this, as in my career with Stewart Group. I started in investment banking prior to that, but in terms of providing retail financial advice to the public, I've been doing this for 21 years, and I think it's one of those things where I think if you're going to do that and you're going to be a fiduciary, so I walk in the shoes of our clients, so we're a fee-only provider. We're bound as a fiduciary to put their interests ahead of our own. You can't fluff that, you can't fudge it, and you certainly can't do it for 2 decades. So for me, part of the reason why we've done that and why we're fiduciaries and why we put ourselves in an effective straitjacket on the way we operate and provide global best practice like that is because there's longevity in it. You get up in the morning and you're like, right, who are we going to help today? And like this morning when I got up and it's we're recording today and it's a Monday, and I looked ahead and said, right, I've got 3 clients. We're going to have a positive impact on their families' world today and what we're doing. Some of them I can have a much bigger impact than others because some people have just a complex set of affairs. Be blended families, and the quantum of capital will be of a certain level that we can have a really meaningful impact on the legacy that they're going to leave to the community, but also to their children and grandchildren.
Fantastic. Like I say, just to be in your space and just to watch you grow and watch the Stewart Group grow is an absolute pleasure. So, just for the listeners and the viewers, how do they find you, the Stewart Group? Whereabouts are you?
We are at 204 Katamu Road in Hastings. That's the black basalt stone building with the tartan logo. It's quite hard to miss. It's got some solar panels on it now as well. Or we're on the terrace in Wellington. So we have 2 locations.
All right.
And people can just phone up and make an appointment and come in and have a coffee. We make a really good brew.
Yes, they do. Not just coffee, but also a good beer too.
We do. We do. We lay down the occasional ale. We've got a little wee brewery at the office, and one of our team members is a dab hand, along with a little bit of oversight from some of us who have some colourful ideas to add. Like we've added Stewart family honey in. We've added things like orange peel. Amazing stuff we've done. And most of the time, the beer is good.
Yes, that's how we met. That was over a beer, so that was very fortuitous. So, and also, what about websites? how else can they get you over the
Yeah, well, look,
stuff like that?
they can read my Kenny View post every Saturday in the Hawke's Bay Today. They
Right.
can listen every second Tuesday to our Kenny View radio show here at Cape Kidnappers.
Yeah.
Or you just jump on the web onto the website, which is www.stewartgroup.co.nz.
Perfect.
That is the traditional Scottish spelling, Stewart. And we kept the traditional Scot rather than the French one, which is the Stuart. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And this is why this man is all about distinction. And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you today, my friend, and looking forward to seeing what great things you do in the future.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks,
Cheers,
Nick.
buddy.
Cheers.